Hey everyone, the FCC is getting ready to pass net neutrality rules. On Thursday, there's going to be a vote on the latest draft of rules that they have written, and I thought I'd take the time to talk about net neutrality and why I am against enforcing it using the government. Before I get into these reasons, I'll give a quick uh, definition of net neutrality so that everybody can kind of understand where I'm coming from. So, net neutrality is the idea that data should pass through the internet freely, where no data is given priority over other types of data. For example, if you're sitting at your computer and you're streaming video from YouTube or you're writing email on Gmail, all the data that comes to your computer is treated the same and given the same priority. So uh, the packets should be delivered pretty much with the same latency and at the same bandwidth. Now, this also applies to businesses that are on the internet. The data that YouTube sends out, or Facebook, or a small internet store, all gets the same priority, and all their data packets are treated the same. And the idea here is that businesses and individuals would be on a level playing field when accessing the internet, which is a laudable goal, and I have nothing against that. And so people are concerned about net neutrality recently because we find ourselves in a position where there are only a handful of ISPs in the United States. Given where you live, most likely you will only have access to one or two ISPs, maybe three. And so this pseudo monopoly environment allows ISPs to do shady things like not maintain their networks properly or as well as they could, or not updating their networks as fast as some people think they should, or potentially treating traffic that goes over their infrastructure differently, whether it's on the user end or on where web companies interact with the internet. So this leads me to my main point about government enforced net neutrality. Having the FCC enforce network neutrality would totally bypass the reason we fear that net neutrality might be broken by ISPs, and that the base reason is there's a virtual monopoly, and there's a couple reasons for why we're in this state. But having the FCC just mandate that ISPs treat data the same doesn't fix the problem that we have with competition in this marketplace. And so that leads me to this article here. Oh, quick, before I get into that article, I just want to show you guys this paragraph in this article. Basically, the vote for these new net neutrality rules is on Thursday, and the draft is 332 pages long, and it has yet to be released to the public or to Congress to scrutinize and look over. This right here is a pretty big red flag, and maybe ironically mirrors pretty much how Congress runs nowadays. They write a huge law and they vote on it before anybody knows what's in it. But yeah, that's a side point there. But right off the bat, it's not looking good. Okay, so here's a paragraph or two that kind of sums up why we face the environment that we're in right now. Before building out new networks, internet service providers must negotiate with local governments for access to publicly owned rights of way so that they can place their wires above or below public and private property. ISPs also need pole attachment contracts with public utilities so that they can rent space on utility poles for above ground wires or in ducts and conduits for wires laid underground. The problem here is that local governments and their public utilities charge ISPs far more than these things actually cost. For example, rights of way and pole attachment fees can double the cost of network construction. And this is an article from Wired, by the way. So, the base problem is lack of competition. And the source of this problem is local governments getting in the way and creating an environment with low competition, which then leads to an environment where ISPs, since they're protected from someone else coming in and providing better quality of service, can sit on their laurels and just shovel money into their coffers because nobody has any real choice in the matter. So, in a weird way, the answer or the solution to this problem is incredibly easy, but at the same time, virtually impossible to fix. Because what we need to do is have local governments stop protecting the existing ISPs in their jurisdiction. I think a perfect example that shows how local ISPs are being protected from competition is Google Fiber and the problem that they're having in rolling out their service to different cities, which they've only been able to do a handful so far. I think Kansas City was the first. I believe they're in Austin now. They might be in a couple other cities. But even Google, a company with a near endless budget, and I imagine armies and armies of lawyers, can still only manage to get their fiber service rolled out in a handful of cities. And so this is the basis of our entire problem, and which brings on, I think, the very difficult solution, which is how do we stop local governments from abusing their powers and forcing us to only deal with one or two ISPs. One way, which could be to ask the FCC or Congress, I'm not sure if the FCC would have the power to do this, but to prevent local governments overcharging ISPs or outright blocking them from coming into their area. Now, the problem with this approach is that it's virtually the same as just asking the FCC to enforce net neutrality. It's trying to fix a problem with a gun, basically. If you want the government to do it, their only method of getting things done is to point guns at people. So the hard part is going to be influencing local governments to lay off of this type of activity. And I don't know the best way to do that. Perhaps a combination of getting this information out there so that people can understand it. Because right now, I think people mostly assume, or at least they're only exposed to a one solution scenario here, which is the FCC just tells ISPs not prioritize different types of traffic. And nobody that I have seen even talks about the problem of competition in this light. So all that to say, the FCC enforcing net neutrality will not fix the underlying problem of competition. I believe that if we want to get a better internet and actually force ISPs to respect net neutrality, we need to make sure that the marketplace has enough competition to where if one company is violating net neutrality or not living up to the standards that their customers want, well, then they can move to another ISP. The regulations in a free marketplace are far more powerful than anything that the government can muster up. So that's what I think. That's my reasoning. I hope that made sense. Okay, thanks for listening. Bye.